Just working in an hour here, an hour there. I still try to see as many movies as I can, but that's really hard now too. I
Right.
saw the other day somebody said, gainful employment kills cinephiles. And I kind of feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
behind on the things I really want to watch. I'm hopeful that when I finish working on the thing that I'm currently working on, that I'll just have a few days to just like lock down, catch up on all the movies, get back with it. And luckily, Duke basketball's only got a couple of games between now and January, so it's
Yeah.
final exam season for them, right? It's slowing down a little bit. So
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about how much you are able to even keep up with movies now, because I do see, we follow each other on social, and I see like you'll do like a letterbox review or whatnot every once in a while, and I'm like, okay, he's still kind of watching stuff, but I just can't imagine writing this many movies and having time to really review. And you're like hardcore, like you're not just like I go to the movies every Thursday. You're like, I needed to watch the re-release of Big Time in Little China at the Man's Theater because da da da. Like you're out there living the life in like the Hollywood world. So like
yeah.
how are you keeping up?
First of all, Big Trouble in Little China, that's a tank.
Yeah.
But uh, how do I have time for it? Man, I genuinely have no idea.
Yeah.
It really does take having a complete lack of friends and other hobbies. I luckily my friends out here all also really like movies. So my buddy Colby, who's a great screenwriter as well, he did Spaceman with Adam Sandler earlier this year, and he's got one with Andrew Stanton next year, who directed Wall-E and John Carter and some really good stuff. We love going to the movies, man. It's good to sort of double up some of the things that we can accomplish. He's definitely one of the guys who knows when the rep theater stuff, when like the re-releases in 70 millimeter or whatever come out. He usually has his finger on the pulse of stuff like that. Keeps me honest, and it's if you live in LA and you're not going to see Lawrence of Arabia on like a huge screen, like why are you living in LA? Like move somewhere else. It'd be cheaper somewhere else. Like I've got to justify being here by going out and doing stuff. So
Was it a big requirement when you were dating, like whoever I'm dating has to be into movies, like I'm
And
into movies,
understanding
or is it one of those things where it's like, actually the less you're into this,
the better.
maybe the better, the less weird you'll think I am?
yeah, Emily knew right away. I believe maybe I've told this story on this podcast before, but since it's been a minute, the night I met her, I knew I really, really liked her. I wanted her to come out with me the next night. I was like, let's go get a nice seafood dinner tomorrow. Like, let's go. I'm not being cool about this. And she said, oh, great. I can meet you at 6 if that works. And I was recording Long and Late Movie Show that night until 6. There was no way I was going to make it. And so I was faced with, that decision that everybody faces in a relationship. And I was faced with it right away. Do I pretend to be cool? Or do I let her know exactly who I am right away, so that
Right.
then if she's not into that, then it's not going to work out anyway.
Right.
So I said, I'm sorry, I can't. I've got to record a podcast with my internet friends until 6. Can we go do a nice seafood dinner at 7? And she was completely unfazed. She was like, yeah, that sounds good. So I was like, okay, we have a live one here. This is good.
Yeah. And that was at the time where that was still weird to people.
say.
Like it
You go
wasn't
internet
Totally.
now, like that everyone has
You
a
talk to
podcast.
people online.
Yeah, and everyone has a podcast, and everyone's constantly
Yeah.
talking about relationships.
Yes.
None of us wants to know, but
Yeah.
like now it's different. But back
Yep.
then, it was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck do you mean internet friends? Are you a
Yeah.
serial killer?
What is a podcast? We
That's
were
right.
around at the phase where you say podcast. I was just like, it's like the radio. That's what I used to tell my family. Some of them I still tell them that because I'm like, I'm not even going to explain to you. It's the radio.
Yeah. Yeah, this was 2010, right? This was a while ago now. And so, I had that, and then I think at that point I might have had 2.1 Seconds to Madness with K-Bad and
Mhm.
with our boy Ba. Maybe he who dropped off after like the first season because he's always too busy. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was weird being a podcaster when podcasting was something that nobody really knew. But it did then ultimately, it allowed me to meet a lot of cool people, because the people who were podcasting and the people, like, it was a smaller community at the time. And then a lot of the people that I've met in college basketball circles, for instance, they told me they listened to 2.1 Seconds to Madness because it was one of, like, we literally started it because there was not a college basketball podcast that we liked. There were like two, and we weren't crazy about either of them. So we were like, why don't we do our own thing, you know? And same kind of thing with doing the movie show. You know, we thought that that was something that would be fun, and we were going to the movies anyway, and it would allow us to talk to some cool people and, you know, give us, again, circling back to what we were already talking about, an excuse to see friends and to make new friends and to hang out with people, a great way to socialize. So I'm really, really grateful, even though I don't do any of it anymore except for the Crazy Cast, which we mostly just do live after Duke games. So I was already watching the Duke game anyway. I don't have to schedule additional stuff, really.
At that point, it's almost like therapy, you know, like win or lose. Like, I just need someone to talk to this shit. I'm not gonna do it, but we're Hornets fans, and so like, literally, if it was easy, like, if I could just get in my car and go live, I do a podcast every time I watch a game to be like, guys, what the fuck, you know what I mean? I don't know what that was, guys. We're trying to figure it out, but
here we go again, right?
Guys, you're not even gonna believe this. Someone got injured. All right. It's funny too, because Ba is weirdly a grown ass man. You know, like, I feel like on the sly, you know, it's just, he's a grown man with grown man responsibilities.
Right.
In my head, we're still talking shit on message boards about movies and video games and fucking pop culture and sports. And then, like you said, it's like, yeah, well, I'll do this podcast thing. I don't have any kids. You know, it's just me and Karen. We're just figuring this shit out. And then with Ba, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. You got you're a grown ass man. You got 2 kids. You got a job. You're married. What am I doing with my life? Maybe I need to step it up. Let me ask you this: like, going from reviewing movies on Long and Late to writing movies, because you've always never made a secret. You want to get into movie writing. You wanted to and one of my favorite things about you is that we both share a love of the quasi bad movie. You know what I mean? Like, the Fire Tornado 7 is like, when those movies come out, I know Karen won't go see it with me. And I know none of my film critic friends will watch it, but I'll be like, Russ, did you see this shit? And
that might have been the last time we did a show. Might have been when Into the Storm came out. That might have been, that genuinely might have been my last time I was here. Absolutely,
like that's when the special effects people are like, "This is our time." They crack their knuckles. They be like, "Let's go!"
Into the Storm, Hurricane Heist, these kind of movies that are just kind of like what most people would consider bullshit. I'm like, man, Russ would watch this with me, and we're gonna have a good time. So what is it like going from movie reviewer, critic to writer, and then, you know, having to deal with, well, actually, before we even get to dealing with criticism, having to see what it's like making the sausage from the inside and how it turns out versus like what you thought going in?
Yeah. First of all, I'm so glad you brought up that and gave me an excuse to drop an Into the Storm reference. I was looking at some of my old social media posts recently, and I saw a series of Donk and Revis posts, and they were like the two sort of like hillbillies in Into the Storm that were so jazzed about, you know, everything. We're getting into trouble. Yeah, the like super like ignorant redneck like dudes who were chasing the storm, dude. So good. So good. You need that character in these movies. In terms of seeing how the sausage gets made, it has, I don't know if it's just this or this and a combination of old age, but it's softened me for sure.
Right.
I feel a lot more inclined when I watch a movie to be mindful of what my response is, especially given like, so here's, I know we'll talk about criticism in a minute, but when, you know, some of the reviews came out, thank you. When some of the reviews came out for Hot Frosty, there were lines that critics that really loved the movie cited that I didn't write. Right. And then there were also lines by the people who really, really hated the movie that I didn't write. So when you're writing, you're at the bottom of the totem pole. The actors will do some improvising. Some of that stuff will make it into the movie. Some of it is really good. Let's be clear. These are very talented people making these movies, and they're so good. So the actors add things, directors add things. Obviously in the cut, producers will ask that some things get added later into the mix, via some dubbing later. So it's made me less inclined to go like the writing sucks or the directing was bad or the acting was bad, right? The actors don't control what the editor and the director and the producers choose to include within, the thing. They're just out there trying their best, and they might have some really good stuff that doesn't make it into the movie, and then there's a take in there and they're watching it going, what the hell? Why didn't they use take 3? I killed it on take 3. So it's so collaborative. So I think it has made me kinder in that respect. It also makes me far more in tune with when something doesn't work in a movie. I can see the studio notes as I'm watching the movie, right? I can see where, one of the things that always drives me nuts in movies, especially this takes place in like fantasies and sci-fis mostly, where they do the opening narration where they're like, Borderlands just did this when the Borderlands movie came out. They were like, long ago, there was a planet called Gleebleglorp, and there was the magic cup of Sweater Town, and whatever. And there's all this stuff. And then 5 minutes into the movie, the character is going, "Well, I'm from the planet Gleebleglorp, and there's the magic cup of Sweater Town." It's like, whoa, wait a minute. We just heard this 5 minutes ago, and you can tell that some suit was like, "I don't think people are going to understand what's going on unless they hear it twice," right? Which is dumb. The audience is smart. The audience does not need that. So. I see notes all the time now. I'm far more inclined when I see a movie that I don't like and I write about it on Letterboxd or whatever. I'm like, I can see the interference here. Madam Web was a great example of this. Like, did it work? No. But does it very clearly reek of lots and lots of tinkering after the fact? Absolutely. So, it has made me kinder in that respect. To movies. Absolutely.
First of all, it's hella funny that two message board guys, we got IMDb pages last 10 years or whatever the fuck. That's crazy. But when I was writing for Game Theory, it really gave me a hugely different perspective on the process and what I'm critical of and what goes into making something. There's things I wrote that I thought were brilliant, killed in the room, does all this stuff, and then like maybe the act out doesn't work. Maybe some suit just gets very uptight about it at the last second. There's stuff that's funny as hell to me, but I also get why we can't do it, right? Like I remember once we were writing about Tiger Woods and the Masters, and I wrote a line that the Augusta club.
Don't get in trouble now, Rod. Don't get in trouble, Rod.
I mean, it's not Game Theory, so I can say it here. But
all right,
I was like, Augusta has a history of racism. It only has 9 black members and Condoleezza Rice, and everybody was like, we can't say that. like just like the room like erupted in laughter, and just immediately like you take that out.
Yep. You get those all the time making things. Absolutely.
Totally get like
there's a lot of stuff people laugh and somebody go absolutely not.
There was a joke I had about like a Wayans brother or something, like one of the Wayans brothers movies, but one of the Wayans brothers is friends with one of the other people in the, so it's like that's the funny, take that out. Really. You know what I mean? Like it's just stuff like that. Where you're like, man, maybe this would have been a 10 out of 10 funny film, but now it's 8 out of 10 in my head. And then also there's just the other part of it, taking your ego out. Sometimes people actually just have funnier things. And one of the things I was able to do, and I'm gonna throw it back to you and ask if you were able to do it. Being on set when something's being made as a writer is so much more illuminating, because you get to see what people add to your work that actually makes it better than what you could have imagined. Because being a writer is a little bit being a control freak. It's like, robot move A, say here, do this line, make this face in your head. That's because you have to be that way to write.
Yeah.
But then when you get there and it's like Craig Robinson, who's fucking Craig Robinson, pretty much knows what funny is. And you're like, well, I thought maybe this. And he's like, what if I pull out my keyboard and play a song right here? And you're like, oh, fuck yes. No, please do that. I said. Like, so did you ever have those experiences when you're on this? Did you get to be on set, and did it, broaden your horizons that way?
Yeah. I mean, getting Craig on was a real joy, obviously. It was definitely the one thing that, when he was circling it, I had heard, we would like to have a point in here where he sings and plays his keyboard. I was like, all right, great. And so I think I literally put into the script, character enters and Sheriff Hunter is playing on the keyboard and singing a song that he made up, and I didn't bother doing anything. I'm not going to write something funnier or catchier than Craig in that scenario. So I was just like, let me, set the pins up, hand him the ball, and then, he can go. Right.
And I love that. I love that. Because sometimes people can be like uptight about that, but I love that he's a good sport in that it's like, yes, of course, I'm Craig Robinson and I know how to play the keyboard and I know how to sing.
Yeah.
I would love to make something up for this part of the movie. That's so dope because, having been on set, I've experienced the opposite, where it's just like, hey man, you're a comedian and you always say this, and they're like, listen, unless you're gonna write the joke, it's like, oh fuck, never mind. Let me go back to my fucking room and get on top of the script.
Yeah. It's also when you're on set, you realize how much of it is like them putting their ass out there. Like it's their face, it's their name. So often, if the movie doesn't work, they're the face associated with the movie. Like people will talk shit about me online if they don't like it. They'll be like, the writer sucks or whatever. And they always say the writer sucks if they don't like it. But more than anything, people will drag actors and be so cruel to actors. Yeah. So I am very cognizant of that now, having been on a few sets at this point. But Craig and Joe, and honestly, everybody, more than anything else, I'm thinking of one scene in particular where it's a line that I really liked, where they're outside the diner, they see the snowman is inside, and Craig sort of in his very CSI Miami kind of vibe goes, "Hello, stranger." And then Joe's character, Ed, goes, "Hey, you're going to need to speak up. I don't think they can hear you through the glass." Right? Like reading it as earnest. I love nothing more than a character who's kind of deluded and then having somebody who's a sidekick who is just so sweet-natured and takes everything very literally. That's always a dynamic I think is really funny. And so I got to watch that scene, and they did it maybe 8 times in one, they didn't call cut or anything. And they just had Joe over and over and over again do it slightly different every time, have Craig say "hello, stranger" slightly different every time. And they figured, oh, we'll find the one that we like later. The joke is still the joke from the script. The wording might be a little different. The intention in terms of how I visualized it being played might be a little different, but the spirit of the thing remains. And more than anything else, it's a best joke wins, and it's is everybody on the same page and in the same movie and committed to sort of the tone that we wanted here, where yes, we're self-aware a bit, but we're never self-aware to the point where it keeps the emotion and the reality of the characters completely at arm's length. We didn't want to do a Sharknado thing here. We wanted to do something where we really cared about the characters. And Craig and Joe both, obviously from Office, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and all the things they've done, they're so good at telling something, getting to something truthful with a character that is very larger than life and very silly. So we were really blessed to get the two of them. We're blessed to get everybody.
That is so fun because I remember once too, remember when John Morant got into that bullshit and he had the gun and he was at the strip club. I remember that we were doing that on Game Theory, And so they have this, they have what they call SOT, but it's basically just video. So they play video, and then when you come out of it, you come back to the host, right? The host is now the person on screen. And every time you come out of video, you need to have like a joke there. That's just how it works.
Totally.
So we had pitched all these jokes, and I had this joke that it just kept killing in the room, in the writer's room. So this is me doing the act out, not Bo. And so we come out of the SOT, and it's, you know, if you remember the video, he's holding this little ass gun up and dancing in the club. And I was like, if we come back from the SOT, come out of the SOT, come back to Bo, and Bo's just going pew 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 with the little gun.
Sure.
But Bo can't do that kind of silly. Like that's
sure. I can see that.
Yeah.
Like, he has a bassy voice, a serious demeanor, and like while he killed it the first read. So it killed and everyone's like, that's the joke. Like, don't even look at anything else. But then we get to like the second read to take, and each time it got a little less. And so it, as Russ said, being on the same page, way more important than the ego of like, it needs to be my joke. It needs to be something that works.
Yeah,
so like,
something that works.
There's a way where you get that joke in there, and your ego said it, but then it doesn't land on the screen, and it just becomes everyone's failure. Craig's failure, your failure, the movie's failure, the director's failure, as opposed to being like, let's just roll with what worked. So like, kudos to you for even seeing that. Now, how many movies have you got to be on the set for? Because I'm looking at your IMDb. Okay, you're Mr. Christmas over here. You got like at least, you have Web of Lies 2018. Then you have In Merry Measure, The Santa Summit, Hot Frosty, Three Wiser Men and a Boy, Christmas Under the Lights, and you got another movie coming out, The Santa Claus, which I believe comes out this weekend. So you're Mr. Christmas now. Have you got to be on the set for each of these? Like, what's that process like?
Some of them. This was my third set, I think. Hot Frosty. I was on set for Hot Frosty. I was on set for In Merry Measure. I was on set for Santa Claus. Santa Summit shot in Winnipeg in February. And A, flying from LA to Winnipeg is expensive, and B, it was 0 degrees when they were shooting it. I thought it would be, maybe I'd have something else going on at that time. And then Three Wiser Men, Christmas Under the Lights. It was just a busy year, so I wasn't able to get to everything, unfortunately, because I love nothing more than being on set. I absolutely love it.
You learn.
Yeah.
You learn so much. I do think that it's useful in terms of getting to know the talent, getting to know the producers, the directors, showing them that you're not overly precious, I think is a huge thing. Again, there are some writers that producers and directors will probably work with that might gum up the works or take too long or really fight back over things that don't really require it. Sometimes things do need a conversation, but generally speaking, there are very few things where you have to be like, no, it is my way or the highway. You are wrong and I am right. Now, I've gone to bat a couple times like that, but very infrequently. And so the more that people get to see me and get to know who I am and get to know, oh, he works efficiently. He's not overly precious. He's got really good dialogue. He's got a great sense of structure. He loves coming up with jokes, on the set. He's good with the talent. The talent knows him and trusts him. Then hopefully the more I can do that, the more I can be included in the process. The more I can just sit in on meetings where decisions that end up in the final movie that maybe I don't think work, then I could at least say, hey, what if we tried it this way instead? Now, they might still choose to do it that way. That's completely fine. But then at least I know, okay, well, it's different when you watch a movie and you're like, wait a minute, why exactly was this the decision that was made? And again, I've been incredibly fortunate. I've been incredibly fortunate. I've been incredibly fortunate that I have had very, very few of those, or they tend to be very small and nitpicky things and not big things.
And also with that stuff, like one, being on the set was a big part of the writer's strike, because they were telling writers at the time, like, hey, we're filming all this stuff, especially streaming stuff. You don't need to be on set for this. Like, we'll figure it out. We'll get AI on the case. It's like, one,
No.
It's not even just the quality at that point. I need to be there to fucking learn. Like, what if I have aspirations of being a director? What if I want to know what a fucking producer does? Also, it helps me to write to know what the difference between a line producer, what the fucking camera people do, what the field producer does. You know, the muscle of coming up with new stuff on the fly while you're filming is a completely different muscle than sitting in a room typing some shit. So like there's so much you can only learn on set, and it's very important to be there. I'm glad you've had good experiences. And it's also interesting too with the with all that, because my favorite thing, and it's a secret favorite thing, okay? Like I don't think I've ever even told anybody this, but
okay.
I think it's secretly every writer's favorite thing. It's when you're like, this is the funny thing or the good thing, and this is how it should be, and then you get like overruled, and then they do it the other way, and it fucking isn't good. And you're like, maybe we give it one shot of my way. You can't be gloating though. You can't be like touchdown dance. Right. You gotta be like, okay, we tried it. And the reason you gotta be humble is because you definitely are gonna have some unfunny, ungood shit too. It's like no one's clean. Like you gonna have an idea where you're like, this is it, and that shit is not gonna hit. And it's gonna be like, well, that was my lesson for the day. But it does feel good when you have, because I'm like you too, in that I'm a go along to get along person, in that I'm not trying to make everything a fight. I'm not a control freak. If you think you have a better idea or I did an add on to it, let's do that shit. You know what I mean? Like I'm not here to.
We look better. We look better if somebody has a better idea. We look better.
No one knows. No one at home knows. So
no one knows.
So whatever's best is best. But it is good whenever it's like, hey, y'all thought that shit was better than mine. Anyway, y'all want to try the way it was written one time? Now the other thing too is, now that you've seen how it turns out, you get reviews, you get comments. A lot of stuff with Hot Frosty is just kind of like either love it in spite of itself, or like genuinely love it, or the like. It's almost like I'm supposed to hate this, but I can't stop talking about this, because I feel like the Christmas romance movie has a bad. It's almost like the sci-fi movie where it's like shark versus alligator or whatever. Like it's Sharknado. It's like you're not supposed to like these, right? We're not supposed to. Like there's a certain type of person that this is their shit.
Yes,
and they're gonna watch them all every Christmas. But this Hot Frosty, I feel like has gone beyond just the like. Just the insular bubble of like this is certain people's shit and it's all they watch. This is pop culture now. People, my friends who don't watch this shit are like, hey man, you heard this Hot Frosty movie? I'm like, my friend wrote that. I'm like, this is becoming a big deal. So now you're getting reviews, you're getting the likes, dislikes. How is it affecting you? Does any of it stick? Does a good stick? Does a bad stick? Are you able to laugh at the bad? Like what goes on with the reviews?
Yeah, it's complicated, right? Doing Hallmark movies primarily up to this point, the people who write about Hallmark movies or whatever are generally fans of Hallmark movies, you know? And I feel pretty confident that I can make a really good and distinctive and interesting Hallmark movie. Like I know Mary in the comments said, I love a big city boss woman going home for the holidays and falling in love with the Christmas tree lot owner. I think I'm very fortunate that I came into Hallmark when they started really expanding what a Hallmark movie could be. So for the last 3 years, the sandbox has gotten a lot bigger, or maybe the sandbox is the same, but I can stretch my leg like way outside of it. Like this one that's coming up on Saturday, Santa Class. It's about a school for shopping mall Santas. It's a very sort of, when I was writing it, I was thinking a lot of like 80s camp movies, that sort of thing, where it's the misfit Santa crew versus the sort of rich kid, super perfect Santa crew in a competition. And our misfits happen upon the real Santa who has amnesia and doesn't remember who he is. So how do you remind Santa who he is? You can't just tell somebody they're Santa. They won't believe you, right? So how do you jog the memory? How can this Santa be used to win this competition? This is the sort of thing that 3 years ago in Hallmark, probably more like 5 years ago, just simply would not fly.
Yeah,
right?
they
They would definitely have needed, they would have needed the big city boss woman going home for the holidays and falling in love with the Christmas tree owner. Absolutely,
Right.
right? So now that they're looking to really expand what that is, they're a little more aware. They're a little more cognizant of the tropes and trying to avoid them when possible. So they'll just tell me, it's got to have a lot of Christmas. They got a kiss at the end, but beyond that, go with God and have a good time, right? Like let's do. It's got to be TVG, but like let's have as much fun with it as we can. So to answer your question about the criticism for Hallmark writers, I do think that my movies work really well. I've been very fortunate with the talent that's been attached, and the producers, the execs, they've all understood what I'm going for. They agree, they've progressed it, and it's all worked really nice. This Netflix thing I knew was going to be the first one that was going to reach further, just because it's Netflix, and Netflix is so much bigger. It is so much bigger, so much more reach. And I was scared. I was definitely scared. I knew how to handle negative reviews from Hallmark. Like, my movies are definitely different than some of the old school Hallmark things. Maybe it's just not your bread and butter. I think it's very easy when you see a negative review where clearly it's just not what that person's into. Great. Say no more, right? You're totally entitled to that. And generally speaking, Hallmark writers aren't very mean and vindictive when writing about the movies. People when writing about Netflix movies will be mean and vindictive. They will definitely go there, which is very interesting. So I wasn't sure how to handle it. I was very fortunate that many of the reviews from the critics were very, very nice. They got it. They understood what we were going for. We were going for something that was a little more, I love like movies from the 30s and 40s, screwball comedies, old school romance, your Frank Capra, your Preston Sturges, your Ernst Lubitsch. I mean, like, these are people that I look to all the time. We're definitely going for that degree of sweetness and sincerity in it. Yeah. And I knew there would be people who wanted like just the one where he's super hot and has sex with everybody or whatever. Like we weren't going to do that. We were going to make him super hot, but we didn't want to go like the romance novel porno version of the thing. Right. we didn't want to do something where we're winking at the camera the whole time being like, how dumb is this premise? Isn't this so stupid? We're trying to use a very silly premise, because my taste also runs very silly as it comes to comedy. Right. We're trying to use that to then get to something earnest. I think one of the review from The Guardian, I don't remember who said this, but they said it's sincerely stupid, but it goes about it sincerely. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I'm going for. That's a perfect description of what I love. It's flawless.
I was talking with a friend who watched the movie, and he's a comedian, so he's like roasting the movie, but also, it's that thing where like you can tell that he enjoyed watching it, but he also is roasting the shit out of it, right? And and so I'm listening to him, and I'm like, all right, well, this is gonna blow your mind. That's my buddy who wrote that, and he's like, what? I have so many questions to ask him and stuff. I was like, but you know what? I said, knowing Russ, the mirth in your voice, the smile on your face, even as you're roasting this movie,
the whole time,
and you're asking these, he's asking these questions like, why does he have underwear on if he just discovered what clothes are or whatever? I was like, that would make Russ laugh. Like, I don't think Russ would take it to this, like, my art, how dare thee? Like, I think Russ is like, it's kind of goofy, but like, I wanted to feel kind of goofy. What it reminded me of, I don't even know if you watched this show, but it's like probably my favorite show. It kind of reminds me of American Dad. And I mean that in the best way, because I have a lot of reverence for American Dad. Mm-hmm. In that it can be silly, but there's like a core and a smartness to the silliness of it. Like the Pretty Woman montage. Like, I was fucking dying, dude. Cause shout out to Craig Robinson, who's in American Dad and plays like a detective that's based off of Forrest Whitaker's detective on The Shield. Mm-hmm. So like, nice. It was given like a type of synergy that made me be like, nah, man, I'm into this silly shit. And this is not my genre of movie. Like, this is not something I necessarily would like watch. So it was like, nah. And it wasn't even that you wrote it. It was literally like, everybody's fucking talking about it. I think I gotta watch it. You know,
Everybody been
it's
talking about it.
It's like Bird Box. Like, I don't want to be out the fucking loop.
Yeah, it was like, you seen Hot Frosty? I'm like, what the hell is a Hot Frosty?
When you send out the memes, I need to know what the fuck the memes mean.
Right?
You know,
you got to be in touch with the memes. Yeah, you got to know the memes.
I was calling
the gifts.
I was calling the CEO shooter dude Hot Shooty because I was like, you know, this like apparently.
I know, dude. That was crazy. I've seen all sorts of comments about that, dude. That is wild. That's
wow.
I had nothing to do with that. Let the record show.
You didn't write that.
That's not viral marketing for a Hot Frosty sequel. That has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, that's wild. That must like thank God we didn't have the internet when Ted Bundy was out here.
Right.
Like seeing real time lust for a killer is kind of weird. It's like, oh, this is live. You guys know that we can see this. But man, it's been fun.
Nobody cares. This is what kills me, and this is what I think this ties really nicely into what I think is important about the movie. Not important in trying to make a movie, right?
Right.
So much of discourse today, online or even in real life, is so like ladled with like thick, steaming piles of irony, and every single thing is like removed emotionally from what the gag is or what the thing is.
Right.
Certainly that those videos on like Cinema Sins or like honest trailers or whatever, where when they would watch the movie trailers and be like, let's not watch it to like get lost in a story, let's instead try to find things that we can like crack on, instead of like just giving your heart over to a thing. I think that when trying to make Hot Frosty, I really wanted it to be the sort of thing where, yes, the title is evocative and it'll get you to watch it, but I wanted people right away to realize, oh, this is the sort of thing where if you emotionally invest, or if you're open to emotional investment rather than just being like, well, I'm just going to snark on it the whole time. If you want to snark on it, there's space for that. But I really appreciated how many people watched the movie, and the review that you mentioned at the beginning. People said, I went into this not expecting to like it, and why was it actually good? It had no business being this good. A Hot Frosty movie should not be this good, right? Like that kind of review always tickles me. I love that because that shows that they went into it ready to irony watch and instead ended up having a sincere reaction to the movie. And that means the world to me. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is funny too, because like on his face, man, as a concept, it feels like a pitch for like an SNL sketch that's gonna be 3 minutes. Like on his, like if you're just like, what if Frosty the Snowman was like hot? It's just like, what? And
genuinely, whenever I would tell people about it, I would do my best Norm voice. I'd be like, oh, he's Frosty the Snowman, but then he's a super hot dude.
And like all the women lusting in him after him in the town. Shout out to Katie, the woman from Eastbound and Down.
Katie Mixon, man. Yeah.
I loved her. I loved her in Eastbound and Down. And I loved her in this.
Good.
My favorite thing is when like when they're like doing the buildup of like, oh man, what's going on with this guy? And you think like, oh, they got to keep coming up with lies for the town. And she's like, yeah, he's like a snowman. Remember the hot snowman came to life. Boom. All right, next scene. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I died when she said it. It's just delivered so perfectly.
Yeah, I really love the idea, and I think a lot of people again picked up on some of the things I was trying to like, sneak into the movie a little bit. But like, this is a movie about the value of having a community that is supportive, and it's a bit of a fantasy in that respect. But like, it's the sort of thing where if everybody in a community was really invested in trying to lift each other up, and somebody came in and said some like super outlandish shit to you, and you were like, well, I've never known them to lie before. Oh, okay, then sure, great. Like I will believe in magic because you believe in this thing, and thus okay, yeah, I guess I can piece that together. Sounds good, right?
That's-
Like, and
that's
is it played comedically to some extent too? Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. But again, it toes that nice line between it's very silly and it's very sincere. So,
Well, talking to my friend through text today, I thought it was funny because man, I'm gonna read the exact thing I wrote, but it was so funny because I was like joking but not joking. I said in the time of Trump, a movie about a community coming together to stop the over policing of an immigrant. I thought you'd be on board, but maybe it's a little too woke for you. In quotes, but like.
I saw some Frosty gone woke criticism, like, oh, they made Frosty woke, you know. Yeah.
But I'm like, that is what happened. He has no fingerprints. He's not here legally, and the community comes together. They try to get together to help him out. So like, that is funny. Karen also wrote a review of it in the chat, in the text, which she said Hot Frosty was as hot as the hot and bothered moms say. He was smoking. He was a smoking surprise. It took him. He was so smoking hot. I'm surprised it took him so long to melt with all that heat being tossed his way. These women in this movie, they apparently
it was hilarious.
Should the men in town have been offended? Should there be like a gym where they needed to go work out because
a room full of
ladies
wives
had never seen abs before in that town? They were going in.
What caught me was the very first lady. Her husband couldn't see, and then they was like, we asked her description, but I don't think her description, we couldn't use her description. She said, I bet you can't.
She was like, we better investigate. She was like,
so we better investigate. Yeah, and then Joe says later, they said, oh, did Ethel get a look at him? And they were like, yeah, but we needed a description of his face.
Yeah,
you know, yeah, that line's in the script. Yeah, I mean, a lot of my favorite bits. What a treat to write for Joe Latrulio. Oh my God, I mean, what an incredible actor. Yeah, the ladies in the town, but I feel like I don't know. Maybe this is just me, right? When I was growing up in Jacksonville, Florida, there were people who were in shape. Like there were dudes, I'm sure there were dudes like on the football team or whatever that was like, but when I went to church or when I went wherever, there weren't ever dudes where like you could tell like they were like professional actor looking like so you need it in a movie. You got to have everybody's good looking in a movie, period. Right. And then you got to have somebody that's the best looking of good looking people in a movie. It takes it to that next tier. And luckily,
how much of that comes into like when you're writing it and you're thinking of the demo? Are you thinking like, listen, we got to have a dude that women of a certain like moms who watch these movies want to see some fucking eye candy?
This
like
is they jam. That's why they came.
Like we don't have a movie if this motherfucker ain't hot. Like it is what it is at this point. So,
and women are the #1 viewers. I hate to break it to y'all.
Sure.
This is like women is like the demo that you're aiming for. So it's like if you miss that, that's your audience.
The women I know who love this movie have a thing in common, which is they do think this motherfucker is hot. Like this, they accept the premise of the movie, which is hot. You know what I mean?
It's called Hot Frosty.
I was less concerned about finding a guy that hot because again, it's Hollywood. They'll find a super hot dude. I was more concerned about finding somebody who was sweet, who was able to give themselves over to the thing so completely and so willingly. And it's the hardest role by a landslide in the movie. And so to get somebody like Dustin who took it so seriously and like, this is a bit of like me overblowing a thing. By the way, my headphones keep pushing my hat around. I don't know what's going on here. This is wild.
I just trying to get the Duke off the screen, which I'm fine.
No. We're gonna leave the hat on. I'm just gonna keep messing with it. But Dustin, man, he approached it with the seriousness of like like a Buster Keaton or like thinking about, well, how do I move at any moment? How do I respond? Like taking the challenge of being so new to the world incredibly seriously.
Yes.
And the thing that I think ends up attracting the women even more than just his abs is like the type of dude that he is, right? Mm-hmm. he doesn't have to be asked to do housework for her. He's just doing
Mm-hmm.
it because it's a nice thing to do. He's
Right.
very sweet-natured. He is not burdened with the world. He's not burdened by the things. He wasn't trained by men over the course of his life to behave a certain way. He instead comes into the world, sees somebody helping others, and goes, "Oh, that seems good. I get that. Yeah, I will also do that." Right? So I don't think it's a coincidence. In fact, I know it's not a coincidence because I wrote the damn thing. that people lust after him. True,
Right.
but what really connects people to him is the sweetness of him. And, you know, I think it's Mel who says at the end, like, you know, a man that sweet just has to be magic, right? Like, it's hard to envision somebody who behaves that way, who behaves in such an ideal way.
Lust is so much different than, you know, romance.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, like,
Totally.
yeah, you could have had a hot dude that just didn't nail the sweetness of it. And I agree. It's not just hard. One, it's hard to write because you have, like, I need this character to be naive, sweet, simple, but at the same time, like, for the story to move, certain shit they just gotta know and happen. So, like it's rated G. He can't be walking around with his dick out, like, for real.
No,
you know what I mean? Like, so like when he has the overall things on or whatever, and he goes to take them off to change clothes, and he has underwear underneath. It's like, of course, like, what the fuck kind of movies is? So he's smart enough to know to put the underwear on. He also, like,
did he even unzip that far to, like, show underwear?
You can see the top. You can see the top.
Oh, I didn't even realize. Fair enough. Yeah, sure.
Top draws. I appreciate him. It would have changed the whole movie.
Abs.
But also, like, he has to have abs, but act like no man who has ever had abs has acted. You know, there's no man with that many abs that is that sweet. And he has to be, like, dumb in a way that is endearing. Which it's just so fucking hard. It's one of the reasons I think Channing Tatum is a great actor. Is because he can do shit like that where you're like, fuck, man, he's nailing this dumb guy shit. No, because like there's a level of, like, funny dumb that everyone's like, aw. And then there's a level of dumb where it's like, this guy's a fucking
yeah. I wrote the name at some point. I mentioned early on in the process, like, we need a Channing Tatum type. Like, we need somebody like young Channing Tatum who can do exactly what it is that he brings to the table. You're exactly right, because Kathy's attraction to him has nothing to do with lust. She has seen his abs and his body in very full glory for the most part, and is not really shopping. She's not impressed, right? Like, she's a bit wary of having somebody around who will be bothering her, you know, and it's only through his actions that she finds that he is, you know, worthy of her affection, right? And brings sort of the L word back onto the table when it was so far off the table. It has nothing to do with, like, man, I really want to bang this snowman. You know, it has nothing to do with that at all, and has everything to do with his behavior and his
that's what the neighbors are for.
That's what the neighbors are for. Sure, the neighbors can lust from afar, but the people who know him, absolutely.
I do. It is kind of a role reversal, but I kind of do love that the, like, older married, like, townswomen are all like, God damn, you know. I just kind of like it's not a constant drone. It's not annoying. It doesn't ever get to, like, some, like, man, you can't even focus on the movie thing. But, like, they're acknowledging, like, Buddy's pretty hot, and he's a stranger. He's new here in town. What's going on with him?
Yes, especially the first woman with the car, how she was just driving and she crashed.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Can I help you with the car?" She was like, "You sure can, baby." I was like, "Oh, okay."
They did a lot of alternate lines for that scene, some of which definitely were not able to make it into the movie.
Somebody said absolutely not.
Yeah, somebody said we do ultimately have a rating that we'd like to accomplish here. Yeah, I named the lady who drove the car after my grandmother, who is 97. You know, yeah, and she saw the movie and she was absolutely tickled. And all of her friends in that group are all named after like women in my family, my grandmothers and my great aunts. So yeah, that's just another way that I find in terms of writing these movies that it helps you connect to them personally. Like you've got to connect personally, otherwise why is the audience going to care if you don't care? So I always end up writing characters with like my friends' names or my family members' names. The people who own the thrift shop, Mel and Theo, like that's my mom and dad, you know. Yeah, like
Karen has a conspiracy theory.
I do.
Okay.
I think I know what you're going to say, and I'm excited to hear it. Yes. But let's hear it.
My conspiracy theory is that the two people in the shop that gave her the scarf, I think that dude is a snowman too. That's my theory. Because
and that's how she knew. Because she wasn't tripping the whole movie. Like she wasn't, was she? She seemed like she had seen this before. She was like, listen, you need to listen,
like,
girl.
It's magical.
You need to stop bullshitting and get with that snowman.
And
okay?
they seem kind of laid back, you know. They was like, hey,
they're very laid back.
Yes, it's okay. Keep my shoes. I'm like, just some brotherly love here. What's really happening?
You know, once you go snow, you don't need no more.
No, there it is. I'm mad I didn't put that in the movie. That's pretty good. I'm gonna put that in the sequel. Look, one of the things I really like about any small town is the degree to which some people will choose to go unbothered. You know, like some people, it's like, you know, come on by for breakfast. Let's just hang out. It's good to see you. How are your kids? What's going on? It's like, whoa, wait a minute, hold on. You know, like some people are just so unbothered, period, because life is simpler when the town is small also, like that, right? Like,
as a writer and movie-wise, I'm surprised how rare it is for somebody to kind of, because, you know, you write yourself into a puzzle and then you try to write yourself out. That's just writing. That's what it is. But it's so obvious sometimes where it's like, oh, what if everyone was just cool? It's just the last. It doesn't matter how many fucking movies I watch, by the way. It always blows my mind because in real life, people are not cool, is what I found for the vast majority of my life. Well, it's always a plot twist that will work on me. It's like, yeah, but what if the whole town was like actually like not that hung up about it? Like it was kind of in your head that everyone was gonna be up in arms about it, but in real life, most people don't give a fuck. And I was like, oh yeah, right. That's a great. Yes, and it is heartwarming, and it does work, and it does make it feel like a community at the end. Like it really did work on me.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm like, it's fucking obvious. I would have never thought of that.
Yeah. I also think once you have the sheriff be somebody who, you know, at some point in the draft process, this line got cut, but you know, he basically, like, they accuse him of, like, you know, learning how to police from Sylvester Stallone movies and CSI Miami, right? Like, this is who he is. The best way to bring out the worst in him is to show that everybody else is great. Like, and nobody needs him to police anything. And obviously, this is, like, a lesson that some police probably should learn, you know? Like,
maybe they watch it.
You don't always need to be like tripping so hard on some of these things. Like he says he writes a ticket for the mayor when he was dropping off like gifts to the children's hospital, right?
Like zone.
Yeah, he was in the loading. You can't park in the loading zone. Yeah, I mean, look.
But you know what? I also thought he was sweet. Like like Craig never plays it so bad that you're like, the sheriff is a villain in the movie.
He plays it like a real person. Yeah,
he plays it like a member of the community who he's a little overzealous, but at the end of the day, he thought, I'm doing this to protect the community. So like I never truly like lose, like he's obviously a hard ass, but I never lose like the connection of like, man, this guy's irredeemable. They got to get him out of the community. It's like, okay, buddy, you took your job a little too serious. Take it down a notch, you know?
Craig on set, and this is him going way too far and being nice to me about it, but he called me Shakespeare when he would see me because he was like, his character he felt was very like Shakespearean, had these big ambitions and takes things way too far. And I mean, I I would be inclined to believe that there are probably a large number of police officers in this country who believe, maybe convince themselves, who believe that what they are doing is for the betterment, like for the greater good, right? And it doesn't matter how bad what they are doing is. They justify it to themselves. They're not like doing and going like, oh, I'm going to go be bad today. No, they're like, no, the things that I am doing are for a good reason. Now, that's a very, very scary thing for people to think when they have power, right? Because when you have power and you think, well, my version of reality is the correct one, and my version of justice is the correct one, then it leads to all sorts of terrible things, right? And like, look, this is a silly movie at the end of the day, but I do think that people who sort of wrote about this is also a movie that, you know, it reflects some things that people might be seeing from law enforcement. I don't think that's an accident. I think that that's something that was certainly on mind. Absolutely.
When he sees and also, like, you know, these movies are about magic, you know, like this is a magical movie. This is Frosty the Snowman, but he's high. So when you're like when he's fingerprinting him, it's like, no fingerprints. He's an agent of the. You're just like, because like not to be too serious, but that is what happens when you have the unexplainable in the hands of like power, right? Like it can't be this non-malicious solution. It's this motherfucker's terrorist. We got like
always looking for something like that. Absolutely. Looking for the worst. Yes.
It's why you look at a small town and go, y'all have 3 Humvees, a tank, and riot gear. Like I don't think our is coming through, right?
Yeah, right.
The 300 people that live here, they are not targeting this area.
Spring Valley, Wyoming is okay. I don't think the revolution's popping off tonight.
Me either.
No, not from the people. Maybe from the police.
Right.
You know, Craig even says the sheriff is like, hell, they might even do a podcast about this. Right? He's already got like how he's gonna get famous off of like catching some criminal, right? Like the second something happens, like he is immediately going to, oh my god, like this is gonna be great for me, you know?
And how long does it take you from like inception? Like you come up with the idea, you start writing the movie. Obviously, you got your notes, you got your drafts, you got your back and forth. Then if it gets, you know, greenlit, accepted, whatever, they're gonna film it. Because I'm sure, you know, rejection's a big part of this business. I'm sure you've had some shit that was just like everything looked like it was gonna go and it's not gonna go for whatever reason.
Totally.
But so when it is a completely successful venture from start to finish, how long does it take you to, would you say, from start to we've wrapped on the movie is out?
It depends in a huge way. I mean, Hot Frosty was a spec, meaning for people who don't know listening, that I wrote it not knowing I was going to get paid, right? I wrote it for myself. I wrote it because I thought it was a funny idea and I couldn't get it out of my head. And so I wanted to write it. And luckily somebody then optioned it. I forget when they optioned it. It might've been spring 22, you know, so it took a couple of years to get here, which for Christmas movies takes, that's a very, very long road. For your typical Hallmark movie, you know, if I sell a concept in October, they might be shooting it in like April or May the following year. I mean, like we are talking very, very, very quick.
Now, is that an appealing part of it? Because like, look, at the end of the day, especially once I was writing, getting paid is a big fucking part of it. Like, I take back every fucking thing I ever said on a podcast about they just did this to get paid. Yes, bitch. Yeah. And so does everyone that does any job ever. No one's in it for just free or the love except rich people. Only rich people like, this is my vanity project. Well, I'm not vain. I need to get paid. So I had never thought about it until it's weird. It's sad, honestly, that it took me knowing you and not this movie, but actually knowing you back in the day when you used to talk about the sci-fi movies. And and you'd be like, oh man, I want to write, you know, this movie like Squids versus Aliens or whatever. And I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with Russ? Why does he want to make those movies? But I didn't know the economy of it.
Yes,
and
wow.
now
I also love them. It's
Yeah.
two things combining, right? They're
Right.
movies that happen very quickly. I've also found, very fortunately, with these Hallmark movies, the people that make them aren't jerks. They also
Right.
are not overly precious.
And they
Because like if
loved
you're
it.
a jerk and you're gumming up the works and they're trying to do this thing from premise to being in the can in under 6 months, you don't have time for jerks, like just straight up, right? It also helps that they're basically all shot in Canada and Canadians are lovely, you know? So
Right.
that sort of thing helps a lot, and I find that very appealing, especially because I like to work very quickly. Like when the idea is in my
Yeah.
head,
You get to see your work.
I want it out. I want it out. Like I got to get
Yeah.
it on the page and then spend some time editing and then figure it out from there. And I love what you said about, you know, I do think getting paid is important. I think that, you know, what's the thing that's coming out soon is the Mufasa movie, you know, and when they announced that Barry Jenkins was doing it, everyone was like, oh, this is outrageous. How dare he do it? I was like, what, you think Barry Jenkins doesn't want a beach house, dude? You think Barry Jenkins doesn't you think Barry Jenkins doesn't want, like, he's like, wait, you're telling me that I could sit in at home on Zoom probably while they're in the recording booth, then people are going to send me special effects updates. I'll be sitting here like this for a year or two while people are working it out, and then they get to put from the Academy Award winning or whatever director of it comes Mufasa Lion King 2. It's like, look, am I in love with the fact that this happens and Barry Jenkins isn't doing an original movie but is doing Mufasa? As somebody who loves movies, no, I'm not. But as somebody who makes movies, if he is somebody, now I don't know if he is this person or not, I don't know him. There are people who will do the old one for them, one for you methodology, right? It is a lot easier. Something like Moonlight probably does not pay a lot of money to a director at the end of the day, and it takes a long time for movies that are not Hallmark movies or sci-fi movies or whatever. It takes a very, very long time.
This is one of the reasons This is one of the reasons I don't participate in the indie versus like Marvel versus DC. I don't even participate in it because I'm like, once you're in the game, you realize it's all synergy. Like they really can't exist without each other. Like Barry needs some money to go call Michael B. Jordan and be like, we want to make a fucking passion project that we've been working on for 20 years about the richest African prince in the history. No fucking studio wants to do this. No one wants to give us the budget. But if we make Black Panther, then we can make this. And I'm like, yes. And if Black Panther got to get made, low key, I want Barry and Michael B. Jordan to make it. Like it's gonna get made. Then maybe they'll make a good one. Sometimes it's shitty, sometimes a cash grab. So, but like at the same time, like it all kind of has to flow together. But like I said, once I needed to be paid, I completely understood the game in a different way of like, yeah, sometimes you just gotta take the hit. Like, fuck that. You know,
I think people, when it comes to that sort of thing, big studio versus indie thing, I think people sometimes mistake where their frustrations lie. Like, I think that it's very easy to get frustrated with talent.
Right.
When talent, I think, to what you are saying is completely true, right? Like, talent can look at that if they have aspirations of doing indie work. Like Robert Pattinson is such a great example of this. You know, there are people out there, Kristen Stewart, another great example, who do these big things, and then once they are paid, they realize, okay, now I can help get other things greenlit. I can be the change I want to see. People get frustrated when artists like, I don't want to name anybody, but there are artists who are out there who do a movie where it feels like it's a one for them, and then the next thing they announce is also a one for them, and then the next thing is also a one for them, and it's like, oh, they just want to be one of them. They don't care about, they did the indie movies to get in to be the person making the them movies, right?
And for the record, I respect
fine,
that
I guess, you know,
because once I got a check, I understood. Like, because there's some motherfuckers that got like, they got them kind of check bills. I don't. Okay, I never thought I would be. I never made decisions that was like, I need to stay in this. Right now.
It's consumer frustration more than anything, right?
Exactly.
If you consume things that are a little more artistic, things that are more non pre-existing IP, then you are very frustrated when you see artists choose to go that way. Where I think people should direct frustration, where I think it is merited when it comes to studios versus indie stuff is to people on the executive level, right?
Exactly.
To the people at the very top, to the people with the money. You're telling me that nobody has figured out at Marvel that a Blade movie should be Blade versus a bunch of vampires for 90 minutes. And that's it. It is the least complicated pitch imaginable. And then every time you hear little morsels in the news that like, well, they're giving him like 4 buddies, and then there's another like whoa, hey, wait a minute. I'm not signing up for Blade and his buddies, dude. I want to see Blade with some cool ass weapons killing vampires for 90 minutes. It's so simple.
I can't wait at the top,
people at the top get messed up on that stuff.
I can't wait for the leaks to come out, because I have a conspiracy theory about that I can't prove. But I wonder if Mahershala is like, this shit need to be Black Panther level for the black people. And because he keeps staying on the film, which is weird to me. I would have been gone.
Sure.
So like it would be, and look, it's only funny to me because I don't care that much. Right. But I'm sure if I had to care a lot, then I'm sure it wouldn't be funny at all. But it would be funny if they were bringing him the script that you're talking about, where it's like, look, man, just fuck up some vampires, bro. You're gonna be cool as shit. It's gonna be an hour and a half fucking up vampires. It don't even really need to be bigger than that. He's like, how is this going to connect with African Americans? Because if it doesn't uplift my people, it's like, I mean, no, Marshall, we'll get another director. No problem. We'll get Jordan Peele. Well, we got some talks going. We're gonna figure it out. But that would be
the dozenth director that'll be
that would be hilarious if he was the hang up. Although, you know, I don't want to put that on him, but I do agree with you. Like studio stuff at the top, and that's. None of us knows, and we'll find out one day probably if it ever comes out or someone leaks it or whatever. But right, I keep saying, man, I can't believe
never happening. Never happening.
I can't. Did you see Deadpool Wolverine?
I did see Deadpool Wolverine.
Bro,
now, if they wanted to dust off Wesley, maybe there's something there. But
look, I still can't believe they let them put that joke in Deadpool, where it's like that movie ain't never coming out. I was like, oh damn. God damn.
Well, it's the sort of thing that like this sometimes drives me crazy about some of these sorts of movies. It's such a have your cake and eat it too thing where like there's nothing that I find like how do I phrase this without getting myself in trouble? I don't ascribe to a certain level of cynicism that that states like, you know, what we can do here is we can take all of the things that we have done wrong. We'll be like, oh, look, we're messing up. The audience will go, ha, 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 ha. And then we will get the money from them for doing that. Like there's such a like a corporate like thing there. Like when a corporation like has a scandal and then like sort of very winkingly like goofs on it, or if somebody like messes up and goes on SNL and does like a, you know, like it's that sort of thing like does give me goosebumps. But again, it's at a studio level and not a talent level. I get why the talent would want to do it, but the studio stuff is where I get a little.
Well, here's let me just put this counterpoint out there. As a comic book fan, especially a comic book fan of Deadpool, that is what Deadpool is. So like the comic book is the same. Like it is also saying, hey, Marvel be fucking up. And here's our place where we can go as people who like Marvel and enjoy the shit and will watch it. Here's our place where we can go. And sometimes they be fucking up. It's like a roast. Like, did those people really hate Tom Brady? No. But here's the place where we can be like, Bill Belichick is dating a high schooler. And we can go, yeah, that we laughed at it, but that is true. Like, we're not forgetting that you did that shit. But both things work. Like, I think it just depends on how seriously you take the movies. I don't live in a world where like these movies are gonna exist, and people want to see them.
100%.
You know, y'all fried yourselves so that because we've been frying you for these mistakes. You fried yourselves. It let me know you're aware of it. Well, I don't think you can salvage anything 20 movies in. I think this is the course it's on. It'll continue. It's like diminishing returns. Like what are they gonna fix it tomorrow? They're gonna quit making billion-dollar movies up to the potential of making billion-dollar movies just out of the goodness of their fucking heart. No one does that. So
it's steering the Titanic for sure. It's steering the Titanic. Yeah, and it takes a long time. If there's an iceberg in front of you, you can't turn it too late. Like, otherwise you are going to get some of that. Now, do I think they are completely capable with the money that they have of changing things in a 2-year span? Absolutely. I definitely think that. Will they do it is a bigger question. I don't know. I also read Deadpool growing up. I think you're right. I mean, I know you're right about the Deadpool thing, but for whatever reason, reading it on a page like a quarter century ago before, like it was this giant corporate, monolith, like it was a corporation, but there's something different about like a kid like in his bedroom, like with like reading the pages and flipping them and throwing them under his bed afterwards versus like the $400 million budget movie for the multi-billion-dollar like industry thing. Is I get that it's in the same spirit, but for whatever reason it doesn't translate. The translation between mediums I think sometimes messes me up on certain Marvel properties.
And for me, I guess this is what I push back. I understand your perspective because, not trying to be funny, you and Roger read a lot of comic books. I came into the Marvel universe through the movies,
right?
Like me personally.
So this is your comic book under the bed,
correct?
Okay, right. Great.
So I do understand what you're saying. It doesn't hit for you, but for me, it's like, okay, I see y'all fucking up. Y'all know y'all fucking up. Tell me the joke in the format that I'm being presented in, because this is my comic book. This is me putting it behind the DVD player or whatever you want to say and forget about it. It's not a book form, but for me,
there's no clean corporation this big.
No.
Like there's no way they're ever gonna address it, or even when they don't address it, we still roast them for not addressing it. Like they made too much money to be uncriticized, so it's just gonna hurt. But here's the thing I will say, because I do have to wrap up. We gotta go in a second. But this is what happens when I always talk to Russ about movies, man. That's why I love the thing I will say though is, in my mind as a kid, I wanted this and I never thought it would happen.
Yeah,
even down to this part. This wasn't like a thing where like I wanted Avengers and then I wanted them to stop. I was like, no. I want them to go as far where we're talking cosmic, we're talking bullshit, we're talking meta shit, like Silver Surfer's talking to the space-time continuum and it's personified. I wanted that weird shit and I never thought we'd get it. And I wanted them to spend $400 million on it. Those are things I just didn't think would happen. And so I continually live in that world where even if I got my dream, part of my dream is that I would like to write on one of these franchise things, like not even just my own independent idea, which I think people make a false choice of like, it's only those two things. Like I have independent ideas that I'd like to write, but it'd be a dream if they said, hey, we'd like to see what you think about some of the Star Wars shit. I got ideas y'all haven't tried yet. And sometimes
don't sign on for Star Wars, Rod. Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself.
I didn't want to tell you this. We're gonna end the show on this, but I got signed to a trilogy, guys. I got a trilogy of Star Wars movies coming out. It's all about Finn. It's all about Finn. Coming out 2032, and it's gonna get made, guys. We're announcing it tomorrow.
It'll get made before Blade. I'll tell you that. I really want to do a martial arts action movie, so I get you on the wanting to do like the multiple things. I would love to be the guy whose IMDb is like Hallmark Christmas, Hallmark Christmas, Hallmark Christmas. Hard R-rated martial arts movie, Scott Adkins, and then keep going back to Hallmark.
Russ,
totally.
Stick it into existence.
Tell everybody where to watch your newest movie that's dropping this weekend.
Yeah, so Santa Claus airs on Hallmark Channel December 14th. It's at 8 p.m. Eastern. Definitely check it out. Incredible cast, some fun surprises in there. I've got some other movies that are going to keep airing on Hallmark this year. Three Wiser Men and a Boy. You should definitely check out. Christmas Under the Lights airs on Hallmark Mystery. That's a bit more of an old school one. If you want to check that out, I'm sure they'll keep it re-airing. Santa Summit, which, really opened a lot of doors for me and is one that people really like. I'm very, very fond of it. And then obviously Hot Frosty on Netflix, man. Keep watching it. Keep making it a big hit. Maybe
really good, y'all. I'm not even gonna lie.
Maybe we'll get a second one. Let's push. Let's push.
Hot Frosty again.
Let's go. Hotter Frosty.
Yes,
absolutely.
The hotter.
That's 100%. I'm 100% calling it Hot or Frosty. Absolutely.
Yes. And let's get and guys, let's see what we can do. Start an online campaign. We got to get Russell Hainline right. We got to get him the right blade. All right.
Yeah.
I gotta make this
happen. I would love that. There'd be no bullshit. It would be 90 minutes of a vampires getting killed by Mahershala, man. It'd be unbelievable. It'd be exactly what we want, and it'll never happen.
I'm there day one. Then as soon as he gets in the room, Mahershala's like, but what is this gonna mean to the African American culture? All right, y'all. That's it. We gotta go because we gotta take pictures for holiday cards. Thank you so much, Russ. Make sure y'all check us out. We'll be back tomorrow. Our guest will be Chris Lambert. Until then, I love you.
I love you too.
Mwah. Oh, and don't forget, live show tickets are on sale. The link is in the show notes. See February 28th, Blumenthal Center for Performing Arts. Peace.
Bye, sweetie.
Bye, Russ. You have a good one, bro.